So I'm not gonna lie, I went into the show not expecting much. I've learned over the past few years with Star Wars to hope for the best but expect the worst. Now I wasn't expecting the show to bomb or anything, I just wasn't really that excited about it. Honestly, I felt kind of flat about it. Very meh. And I'll explain why later. But now, into a review of Ahsoka. Starting with a bit of a character breakdown. I want to start with what I liked about Ahsoka, which was surprisingly a lot. One thing Filoni really got right was the characters in this show, although for the most part the heavy lifting had already been done in Star Wars Rebels. However, there were still new additions to the show that were pretty well executed. To briefly touch on them, I think Sabine was done really well. I think she had all the spunk and tenacity she had in Rebels. Visually a pretty perfect match. I wish they had explored her artistic side a little more, because that's always been one of my favorite qualities in her. It would have also been cool to get a little more depth into her Mandalorian background, but I suppose that has been done already, and I'm sure will be visited again in the future. I think they approached her return to Jedi training pretty well, and I like that she kinda sucked at it at first, because we know the payout's going to be much better later on, although I do think that payout came much sooner than I expected. I do like that there were moments when she was using a saber, but switched to blasters, because that's what she's better at. I think that's a nice touch. Sure, she made mistakes in this show, but they served to move the plot forward and added more depth and complexity to her character. Moving on to Ezra, I don't think I have that much to say about him, other than he was executed perfectly. I think the actor knocked it out of the park. I really felt like that really was just grown-up Ezra from the Rebel show. I love how strong and confident in the Force he had become. I feel like we've all been waiting so long just to see what happened to him, and I think it was done pretty well. It would have been really easy to drop the ball on this, and I'm glad they didn't. Can't wait to see more of him. Thrawn, like Ezra, I think couldn't have been done better. Well, a little better, but I'll touch on that later. I think having the voice actor be the actual Thrawn was a genius decision that really made it a smooth transition into the live-action role. I wish that it had been done more often, honestly. I feel they did a pretty good job displaying his cunning mind and did it in a pretty convincing way. I was worried that the writing was going to be lazier and they were just going to be like, aha, I knew you were going to do X, so I did Y, kind of villain. I love that the dude has just been cruising around in his fully staffed Star Destroyer, maintaining control and order this whole time. You'd half expect him to be like tweaking out in a cave somewhere or something. Another thing I love is how he expressed his creative side and his downtime by customizing all of the stormtroopers' armor and the ship's aesthetic. It just seemed very like him to do that, and again, it was a nice touch. Also, I really like these two new additions to the dark side. They had a really intriguing dynamic, and every time they were on screen I wanted more of them. In particular, Baylan. I wanted to learn more about their past and how they got to where they are now. There's a lot of mystery there, and I hope we get to unpack more of that later. Well, as much as we can anyway. It's a shame that we lost Ray Stevenson before we could see more of his character. But we could always get the exposition from his apprentice if we see her again. Maybe a flashback with a younger actor playing a younger Baylan. It's always possible. But yeah, Baylan was really cool. His calm demeanor really had me in a trance. And he never came off as just like evil for the sake of it. He carried a deep-rooted sympathy and sadness. Every time he talked, you just wanted him to speak more, tell us a little more, give us a little more. Hopefully we get to know a little more about what went on inside his head in the future. Obviously, we have to talk about episode 5, the Anakin episode. I'm actually going to save this breakdown for another video potentially, because otherwise I think this one will go too long. Although this part of the episode does have its issues, which we're going to touch on later, I have to highlight the immense joy it brought me, because I am an Anakin/Vader shill. There were a lot of cool moments there. Again, I'm going to talk more about it in another video. And I'm not going to go scene by scene here because you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And before we move into some negatives, I want to rapid fire some things that I liked about the show, but I don't have a lot to say for. This guy, cool. This ship, cool. Live action Lothal, cool. Hu Yang, cool. Lightsaber battles, awesome. Chopper, hell yeah. Seeing Mon Mothma and the New Republic trying to create and maintain order was pretty neat. The whales before they jumped to hyperspace was just a beautiful scene, even choked me up a little bit. Now moving on to what I didn't like about this show, or where I think it fell flat. This might be a bit of a hot take, but I think Ahsoka was the worst part of Ahsoka. I have never liked the casting of Rosario Dawson from the get-go, so I am a little biased. And I've seen her in a number of shows before Ahsoka in the past, and I loved her. I think she's a great actor, and I know that she has incredible range, which is why I'm kind of shocked at her performance of Ahsoka in every show we've seen her so far. She just feels very meh. Now, animated Ahsoka, or Ashley Eckstein's Ahsoka, has a number of qualities that make her a great character. She's passionate, aggressive, empathetic, soft, kind-hearted, but prone to anger, like her master. She's smart, cunning, brave, ambitious, and so on. Which is why I don't understand why live-action Ahsoka is just chill. There's just never a lot there. Not a lot of emotion to hang on. Even in moments where she's like distressed or concerned about something, I just never really felt drawn into the scene. I just felt like I was watching someone who was too cool to be themselves. Like someone who's trying so hard to show how collected they are. I don't know. I just didn't find it very believable. Even the grown-up Ahsoka from Star Wars Rebels, who was calmer and wiser, gave us a little bit more than this. I don't know. Sometimes I think they should have just cast Ashley to do the role. She lives and breathes the character. I just think we could have gotten a lot more than we got, and we know that she's capable of giving us more. So I'm not sure what went on behind the scenes, or what coaching she got. And it's not like she screwed up the character, or ruined the scenes, or messed up the show. She just felt flat. Kind of boring, honestly. Hera was another character that I think failed to hit the mark. Visually, I don't know, she just lacked the same look. Hera that we got looks very much like a really good cosplay of Hera, but not perfect like you'd expect from a Hollywood-level production, from something like Disney. Like Ahsoka, I think Hera we got lacked the same energy that we got in Rebels. It wasn't terrible, it just didn't convince me it was Hera in the same way that Sabine or Ezra did. The actor did a great job at, well, I guess acting, but didn't get the notes on Hera's personality before they started filming. It was a lot of just her spouting that she's a general over and over again and acting like a hashtag girl boss. I did really enjoy her dynamic with her son, though. That was really cool to see. Back to Thrawn. I'm sorry, but that gut is distracting. Bruh, couldn't you have hit the treadmill a few times before this role? I'm not just like fat shaming him. Thrawn was known for being incredibly regimented into his routine. The dude was in incredible shape in Rebels, and on his own accord. He took his training really seriously, and he was a cunning martial artist. And what, now that he lives in another galaxy, he just throws it all away? He maintained the same order as I mentioned before, so it just doesn't make sense that he'd stop his training. Why not give up on everything else? Also, wouldn't they have like less food out there? I just don't understand how a character like Thrawn could end up like this. I'm not judging the actor for being overweight. It's just not in his character, in my opinion. The biggest problem is that it's distracting for me. It just takes me out of the scene, and I start asking myself all these questions while I'm watching, just trying to understand the character's off-screen physical development. I know I'm overthinking it, and I know it's silly for a belly to break immersion for me. But hey, we all remember Boba Fett, right? Now I want to touch on some things that weren't terrible, but were just kind of a missed opportunity. It was cool to see the live-action Nightsisters. Haven't seen that before. But they were pretty boring. I don't know what I expected, but that's kind of how they were. There just wasn't much there. And nothing about their connection to Thrawn was really explained, unless I missed it. Why were they working together? What did they get out of it? Did they just stand on that ledge all day long, waiting for shit to happen? How did they even get to this planet in another galaxy? And for Morgan, I understand her motivation for reaching Thrawn was because the Nightsisters told her to. Didn't she have any motivations of her own? I don't know, maybe it was power. I mean, she was just kind of a pretty bland character, but she did keep the plot moving, so that was good. And then once she gets there, there's a really cool ritual, she gets a really cool sword and then dies. I don't understand why she put her life on the line except out of sheer loyalty. Which is fair, people have given their lives for less, but it was just something that I wondered about as I was watching. And another thing, I'm honestly surprised that Zeb didn't make an appearance in the show. I mean, they had this guy who works with Zeb, so why didn't Zeb show up to help Hera? I don't know. Just kind of seems like a missed opportunity. Even a 5-minute X-Wing cameo would have been really cool. I don't know if he fits in an X-Wing. It's something like that, you know, even like a phone call. Hey, we need help. Can you help gather up some other pilots or something? Also, we never really got to learn about Ahsoka and Sabine's falling out, unless that was something else I missed. But I'm assuming that we'll get flashbacks in the future because it just kind of seems like too big of a thing to miss or overlook. Speaking of Sabine, I'm really pissed off about that lightsaber stab, if you hadn't noticed from my most recent YouTube video before this one. I've seen people and videos justifying it. All are valid and fine, good points for either side. But that doesn't make it easier to stomach, no pun intended. I guess I just had to accept that lightsabers aren't as lethal as they used to be. People are saying that head decapitations are going to be the new stomach stab, right? Because stomach stabs just don't kill anymore. Here's a clip from one of my favorite YouTubers, The Critical Drinker, breaking it down.
She was impaled in the lower right side of the abdomen at an upward angle, which means the blade would likely have penetrated her upper intestines, kidney, and possibly her liver too. If this was just a regular old steel-bladed sword, then such an injury would cause catastrophic damage to her internal organs and almost certainly be fatal without immediate medical intervention. But this isn't a sword, it's a lightsaber, which means that Sabine has got much bigger things to worry about now. See, as I mentioned earlier, lightsabers burn at temperatures of up to 23,000 degrees, which is about 3 times as hot as the surface of the sun, in case you were wondering. So basically, Sabine's entire body would literally combust right in front of her eyes as the hydrogen-oxygen separation spreads as a chain reaction until it consumes all the available fuel in the vicinity. So no, she probably wouldn't be able to walk this one off.
I don't know. In my opinion, when scenes like this happen, it just kind of chips away at the integrity of Star Wars. Now back to the Anakin Ahsoka episode. Now that some time has passed, I have to reflect on Ahsoka's spiritual journey through the flashbacks and the world between worlds. At the time, I was freaking out and excited, like most people, to see Anakin back. But on reflection, none of this really makes any sense. It's triggered by Ahsoka falling off a cliff. Then I struggled to understand what the lesson actually was here. I've seen some people try to break it down with different opinions, but I feel like we shouldn't have to break it down or disagree. It should just kind of be obvious what's going on. But anyway, I think the takeaway was to not give up, to not die. I don't know, just kind of felt out of nowhere. I wasn't aware that Ahsoka was struggling with anything previously. I didn't know that she was on the verge of giving up about something. So for me, at the time, I pieced together that Anakin might be teaching her a lesson about balance, since he appeared as both the light and the dark versions of himself. But that isn't the lesson that she learned by the end. In fact, I'm not sure what she learned in the end. At the end of the day, I realized that it's really kind of just fan service, unfortunately. Another shiny toy being presented to us by Dave Filoni. Did I enjoy this shiny new toy? Hell yeah. The flashbacks were cool, and I loved all the variations of Anakin and Vader we got to see. In fact, I will cherish these moments for a long time. But for the sake of the episode, it really didn't make any sense. It was just kind of shoehorned in for the fans, which is fine. We just gotta accept it for what it is. Kind of like Luke showing up in Mando to take Grogu, only for Grogu to leave and go back to Din after not finishing his training. What is the point? Like when Anakin says that we haven't finished your training, you have to finish your training. They just didn't really do any training after that. I was like excited for like some kind of cool montage or, you know, some obvious lesson she was going to learn, but I don't know. I didn't really get that from those flashbacks. I think we were all just happy to see live action in Clone Wars again. Speaking of the story, this show was lucky that it was able to piggyback off of the Rebel story. The biggest thing Star Wars TV has struggled with, aside from Andor, is good story. However, with Ahsoka, we had a clear line from start to finish. I have to also add, it seemed more like a story for the Ghost crew, and Ahsoka was there. Sure, she knew the danger that Thrawn posed 100%, and she was mixed into a lot of the action from Star Wars Rebels, but it didn't really feel like it was her story, but she was in it. Ahsoka was never the focal point of Star Wars Rebels, but now they've given her their story. That's how it feels to me anyway. Ahsoka's strongest development came from a dream vision thing that didn't even make sense for where she was as a character or the story. Even her story with Sabine was never really fleshed out. Sure, they had beef, now they're reconciling. Okay. Anything more than that? No? Okay. But what I will say is, I was bought into this show. I enjoy the episodes and the story. For me, it was enough to look forward to the next week's episode. Was there some clumsy writing? Of course. There always is. This is Disney trying to write Star Wars. There's no grand vision like George had. There's no larger story. They leap from one project to the next, riding off the coattails of the past, just trying to retain Disney Plus memberships to offset the millions and millions of dollars that they are losing on Marvel right now. Just a bunch of monkeys with typewriters trying to shove blocks into holes, and eventually they get the square peg in the square hole, and everyone is happy. Okay, I got a little carried away there. Overall, I did enjoy this show, and it had a lot of strengths, as I mentioned earlier. That's why Ahsoka is a show of high highs and low lows. I'm hoping that they can improve on some of these issues in the next season, and I'm definitely anticipating it. What do you guys think about this show? What were your favorite parts, least favorite parts? What were your highs and lows? Let me know in the comment section or click the link in the comment section or description to join the Discord. Share your opinion with us there. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.